In this lab demonstration, I'm going to show you how to connect on-prem FortiGate Firewall to Azure Sentinel workspace. So Sentinel is Microsoft Cloud Native SIEM plus source solution. SIEM plus source solution. SIEM stands for Security Information and Event Management. And SOAR stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. Right? So cloud native, SIEM plus source solution. And even though like Sentinel is like deployed in Azure cloud, but that not necessarily means that we cannot use like Sentinel for on-prem network devices or servers, right? We can use, of course. It's a cloud-based SIEM plus source solution, but even we can forward logs of like on-prem firewalls, load balancers, servers to Azure Cloud Sentinel, right? And there we can create a rule logic for errors and incident. Let me start with a very high level overview of Azure Sentinel, and then straight away I will take you to Azure portal and I will show you how we can integrate on-prem FortiGate firewall with Azure Sentinel. So I have like one FortiGate firewall running in my network. So what I will do, I will integrate that firewall with Azure Sentinel. Let me quickly start with a very high level overview of Azure Sentinel, right? So basically Sentinel, like Azure SIEM solution, runs on top of log analytic workspace, right? Log analytic workspace. So Sentinel runs on top of it. So you can understand like log analytic workspace is something like a centralized log server, right? So first configuration that we do is what? We create connectors to send or forward security events or other logs to log analytic workspace. For example, if I have maybe Azure firewall in the cloud itself, right? Maybe a virtual machine running in the cloud. So first step would be here configuring a data connector, log source, right? And what if like if I have like a Fortigate firewall or maybe Palo Alto, Checkpoint or other like network firewall, right? Because on like firewalls, we cannot install any agent software or any other like tool, in fact, right? For integration. So it's a bit complicated. In fact, it's a bit complex, and I'm going to show you how we can forward FortiGate or Palo Alto or maybe a Checkpoint or Cisco firewall logs to log analytic workspace. Because once like logs are forwarded to log analytic workspace, on top of that we configure Azure Sentinel, right? Because Sentinel works on top of log analytic workspace, and then using Kusto query language, we create the rule logic uh, for like alerts or incident. Even there are a lot of like automation like options available in Azure cloud, right? Even we can integrate some threat intelligence. There are too many options to configure there, right? But primarily first step is what? Configuring connector, data connector. So if resources are in the Azure cloud itself, so really it becomes very easy, very simple. But what if like resources are like on-prem? And even if like we cannot install any agent software, so yes, it's become a bit difficult. Not exactly difficult, but like yes, too many options to configure. So exactly the same like I'm going to take here. The example that I'm going to take here is like integrating on-prem FortiGate firewall with Azure Sentinel, right? So in order to do that, a Syslog server a proxy server, right? Syslog server is required. Means my FortiGate firewall, FortiGate or Palo Alto or checkpoint firewall all first like forward logs to syslog server, right? In like CF logging via TLS syslog, right? Sent on like port number 514, okay? And the syslog server, and this syslog server is basically can be uh, configured like in on-premises, maybe can be a virtual machine in the Azure cloud or EC2 in AWS cloud, no matter like. So you can configure any Linux machine as a Linux server. So basically, sorry, syslog server. Syslog server is very much like a proxy, in fact, sitting in between log analytic workspace and on-prem FortiGate firewall, right? So basically, here is log analytic workspace, and as I mentioned, like Sentinel works on top of it, right? So syslog server basically forward logs to log analytic workspace. So now, but let me mention a very important point here. If you have like a spinned up virtual machine in Azure or maybe EC2 in AWS and you want to configure that machine as a syslog server, means a proxy between FortiGate firewall and Azure log analytic workspace. So make sure that uh, network security group allows like port number 514, right? Because if you have a spinned up virtual machine in Azure or EC2, so you understand like network security group or security group is used to control inbound and outbound traffic. So you'll have to check that. You'll have to create a rule to allow uh, like traffic hitting on port number 514. Okay, so Fortigate Firewall is configured to forward logs to syslog server, and then in turn like syslog server forwards log to log analytic workspace in Azure cloud in common like security log basically in SIF format. So and here basically agent is OMS agent in fact basically runs on Linux machine, means like this your syslog server, right? So this OMS agent, and OMS stand for Operations Management Suite, right? So this agent runs here like on the syslog server, and how we install that agent. So just hang in there, I'm going to show you all the steps, right? Particularly I'm going to show all the steps like configuring syslog server, configuring FortiGate firewall to send logs to first log server, syslog server, and then from syslog server to Azure Sentinel, right? And then once like they're like security events or logs there in log analytic workspace, then we can create analytic rule, right? Based on like Gusto query language. Okay. So first I'm going to show you how to configure a Linux machine as a syslog server, right? And our syslog is by default installed on most of the Linux like distributions, including Red Hat Linux, CentOS, right? But it's still like if you're not sure like whether our syslog is already installed, services running or not, so we have like some certain commands to do that verification whether syslog is installed or not, and what about the service status. Okay, so stay to me. I'm going to first show you how to configure syslog server, then I will just be configuring FortiGate firewall to forward logs to syslog server, and then we'll go to Azure portal and verify whether like there are like logs in log analytic workspace or not. Okay, so first thing first, and first I'm going to show you configuring syslog server. Okay. Alright, so first command I'm going to run here is systemctl status or syslog dot service to check the status whether syslog is running or not. So you can see here like active and running, right? What if like not running? Then you can start the service with the command systemctl start or syslog dot service. Alright, so simply you can run this command systemctl start or syslog dot service to start syslog service. Next step is like editing our syslog.conf file, right? Because these like TCP port 514 and UDP port 514 both need to be enabled. Okay, so next step is editing, and I'm going to use via editor. You can use other editor also, or syslog.conf file, right? Yes, configuration file here, and just look for this UDP syslog reception and TCP syslog reception. All right. So what all you need to do here, just uncomment both, like uncomment from here also. So I want to uncomment both TCP and UDP. So module of this uncheck, uncheck, and then TCP also, right? So this way, syslog server will listen on both TCP and UDP port number 514. So once you have done editing, right? What I did, I just uncommented like these two lines and here also. Then escape from your keyboard and WQ, right and quit. Configuration saved now, right? Now, next step, systemctl restart or syslog dot service. So restart the service. Okay, done. Next step is allow or syslog service port in Linux firewall and then reload the firewall. And what all ports we need to allow, TCP port 514 and also UDP port 514. So allow these two ports, right? And in case if let me also do one thing. Let me update because this machine is not upgraded. So let me do this first. apt update, right? Just I'm updating and then I will do upgrade because most likely firewall daemon is not installed in like this Ubuntu 22. I'm using Ubuntu 22.0, right? And it's giving the option to upgrade, apt upgrade. Yes, I want to continue. If already you have like syslog server machine ready in your environment, so you don't have to do all this, right? So I'm using basically Ubuntu machine hosted in Azure cloud itself, right? So by default, firewall, Linux firewall is not installed. So just I want to do that. So 41%, 51. So first, like I ran apt update command, now apt upgrade, and the third command, like firewall installation, I will run apt install firewall d. Okay. All right. So the third command, apt install firewall d, firewall daemon. So do you want to continue? Yes. And not necessarily syslog server has to be in fire like cloud itself. Even you can configure on-prem physical or virtual machine as a syslog server, any like Linux or Ubuntu or CentOS, right? Because Linux syslog server is basically proxy between FortiGate Firewall, and Azure Sentinel workspace. So next command here, firewall minus cmd minus minus permanent, and then minus minus add port is equal to 514 TCP and also UTP, right? Also UTP. So both ports are allowed now, TCP and as well as UTP. Now reload the firewall, minus minus reload. So firewall is successfully reloaded. That's it. So very much like we have finished the syslog server configuration. So as I mentioned, like if your syslog server is ready, configured, so next step uh, is like just creating a data connector. Data connector means connecting syslog server with Azure Sentinel workspace, right? So what I'm going to do first, I will create a log analytic workspace, because as I mentioned, Sentinel works on top of that. Even if there is no log analytic workspace, so straight away we can create Azure Sentinel. On the same page, we find the option to create log analytic workspace. So I'm just showing like from scratch, from the very beginning, from the very basic. I assume like there is no log analytic workspace Sentinel already there in the portal. So first, like I'm going to create log analytic workspace Sentinel, and then configuring syslog server with like I'm like installing OMS agent on it, so that like syslog server should just keep on forwarding logs to Azure Sentinel workspace, and then I'll also configure as Fortigate Firewall to send logs to syslog server. So you understand, right? Proxy, like Fortigate Firewall will send logs to syslog server, and then syslog server will forward those logs to Azure Sentinel workspace. For that, we have like OMS agent, right? And Python is also required here, like on this syslog server, in fact, right? So if not already installed, then we will have to do that installation also, okay? Because we'll have to prepare like this syslog server machine, in fact. So even network tools, Python, so these tools like need to be installed on your syslog server, okay? Otherwise, like yes, there will be a lot of issue, okay? So straight away, I'm taking you to Azure portal. Here in my FortiGate firewall, I'll be configuring FortiGate firewall to send logs to Azure Sentinel. But first thing first, and the first is like creating Sentinel. So search for Azure's Microsoft Sentinel, right? There is no log analytic workspace, no problem whatsoever. On the same page here, like add Microsoft Sentinel to workspace, there is no workspace. Create workspace here. So I'll select a resource group, and this is my log analytics workspace 01. You can give any name. Next, and review and create. Create. So log analytic workspace is getting created here. And the Microsoft Sentinel offers a 31 days free trial, right? So you can use Sentinel, and you will be built on the basis of like amount of data ingested, even like other features that you use like connectors. But better like to check the Microsoft Sentinel pricing before activating or enabling Sentinel service in production network, right? I'm using free trial account, so I'm less bothered. Refresh. So yes, created now. Log analytic workspace is created. Add Sentinel on top of it. So Sentinel is being added on this log analytic workspace, right? And before like configuring data connector to collect logs from Fortigate Firewall, syslog server machine, like the proxy Linux machine, basically need to be prepared, right? That means you'll have to check whether Python is installed or not, and some network tools like TCP term, because these tools are required, right? So Sentinel is activated. So if I just show you data connectors under configuration, so I'm here under configuration and data connectors. So total 127 data connectors are available, but of course, like we'll see here, 0 connected because there is no data connector configured yet. So next step is creating data connector, and I hope you understand data connector means like installing agent on the Syslog server, and we cannot install agent directly on Fortigate Firewall, and that's why we are using Syslog server like a proxy in fact. So OMS agent will be installed on the Syslog server, and even like Microsoft gives a script in fact, simply we will have to copy from here and then paste in here. Automatically a script will run provided Syslog server should have wget command install network tools and Python, right? So you'll have to ensure that in case not installed, then just install like network tools, even TCP term, wget, right? So your server, like Linux server or Syslog server, should have necessary tools and commands already installed, and then we'll just run like the script in fact, a script like the Python script provided by Microsoft on this machine, right? And then rest of the like configuration will be done in very automated fashion in case even there is some issue. So again there is another script here available on the same page, and we can use that script for the troubleshooting purpose. I'm going to show you, like, so it's very easy in fact, it's not very complex. Okay, so search here for Fortigate, Fortinet or Fortigate. So search, and here Fortinet on the right hand side you can see like Fortinet, and yes, its status is disconnected, we know that. And Fortinet firewall connectors allows you to easily connect your Fortinet logs with Microsoft Sentinel to view dashboard, create custom alerts, improve investigation, right? And so all right, so open connector page. So prerequisites like workspace read and write permission, keys like read permission to shared keys for workspace. So already I have been logged in with global administrator account, so no problem whatsoever. And then Linux syslog agent configuration. Install and configure the Linux agent to collect your CEF like common event format syslog messages and forward them to Microsoft Sentinel, right? So for that, and even like you can read this, select a create Linux machine that Microsoft Sentinel will use as the proxy between your security solution like Fortigate, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and Microsoft Sentinel. This machine can be uh, on your on-prem environment or Azure or other cloud. Okay, and then step number 2. So once your syslog server is ready, then go to 1.2. Install the safe collector on the Linux machine. That is installing what agent in fact. All right, with this script. So install the Microsoft monitoring agent on your Linux machine and configure the machine to listen on necessary port, right? And that's the reason like we are using a proxy or syslog server, because in case if like we would have to configure data connector to collect logs from Microsoft Windows server or Linux server. So even directly we can install agent on the Microsoft server itself. We don't need any proxy server. But you understand, like you cannot install that agent software and Fortigate or Checkpoint or maybe Cisco FTD firewall. Okay, and further you can read here like safe collector collects theft messages on port TCP port 514, and make sure that you have Python on your machine, right? If not, then just run the command to install Python, right? And you must have elevated permission on your machine, so root permission. And here is the script. So what I will do, I will copy and paste the script, right? And this script need to be run on Linux machine syslog server. Here is the script. Run the following command to install and apply the safe collector. But wget I'm sure like wget is not installed on Ubuntu machine like that. I have it spinned up in Azure virtual machine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first like install network tools, also Python, and this wget command. All right. So to that, so let me quickly go to this page here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to install first network tools because network tools are also not installed, right? So do that. During verification or for troubleshooting like TCP dump and other commands like required, so better like if you install them upfront. And also I want to install apt-get install wget, right? So wget command will be installed now. So what I did, I executed the command install wget, and before that I install network tools. So network tools, then what do you call it, wget command, and also I want to install, if required then I will install TCP dump and all that, but Python, yes. So apt minus get install Python is Python 3. Okay, so almost done. So my Linux machine, our Syslog server is now ready with Python and other network tools, right? And if already installed, then you don't have to install them again. And then I'm back to Azure portal. Let me quickly increase the font size so that you can see properly. Now here, like run the following command to install and apply the Ceph collector. Copy. So copy it, minimize, I'm back, and then just paste in here. All right, a Python. Okay, enter. So only one step, right? So once OMS is in and is getting installed successfully, right? Then next step is configuring Fortigate Firewall, because Fortigate Firewall will send syslog messages in safe format to the syslog server or proxy machine, right? And make sure to send the logs to port 514 TCP on this syslog server IP, in fact. So it's getting installed. So OMS isn't downloaded successfully. Trying to change OMS isn't. So I'm just minimize this. So let this installation be running in the background, and I'm back to this Fortigate firewall. Alright, so Fortigate firewall has one internet traffic rule. There is one computer here behind Fortigate firewall, and I can see here like Facebook, yes, it's running, Google running. So we'll see like logs in the log forward traffic log section. So yeah, like logs like with hitting the internet traffic rule. Perfect. All right, so just go to log settings, and here you can see send logs to syslog. Sorry, here enable this, right? By default disable. So if you want to configure, but we have very limited option in graphical user interface mode. And here like my syslog server IP, and syslog server IP is like public IP, even can be private IP, no worries. So mention here sys send logs to syslog server, right? But you have very limited options in GUI, right? Even we cannot set the format should be strictly CF format, right? So just get into CLI mode of it, like CLI of your Fortigate firewall, and run the command config log and then syslog daemon setting. Okay, set status enable. All right, set format CEF, port port is 514, and even you can also set server from CLI also, like 172.171.218.238. Okay, format is set, and you can see here. All right, and so my Fortigate firewall is also configured to forward now logs to Syslog server, right? So let me make a space here. I'm just clearing my screen. So we have successfully configured Fortigate firewall to forward logs to Syslog servers on port 514, right? That means now Fortigate is configured firewall is configured to send logs to syslog server, and syslog server, like listening on port 514, also OMS agent is installed here, and means like data connector, and data connector is to just collect logs coming from FortiGate firewall and forward it to Azure log analytic workspace, and Sentinel is running on top of it, right? Sentinel is running on top of it, right? Log analytic workspace. So the only step that is required here just to check like whether OMS isn't is installed successfully or not. Okay, so I'm back to this machine, and I can see here like your machine is auto sync with the safe portal and installation is completed, no worries. So and the best way to do verification here, like whether syslog server is configured properly or not, so just to go here like validate connection is step number 3. And even if you look at step number 2, right, so even don't need to remember like all FortiGate firewall commands, so all the commands are mentioned here in fact, right? CLI command. Just copy here and paste in the notepad, or straight away you can paste in CLI of your FortiGate firewall, right? And even like it's mentioned, like copy the CLI commands below and just replace the server IP address and facility name if required, and so on, so right. So already we have finished this step number 2, so I'm not going to copy and paste the command, right, because I knew like commands of FortiGate firewall. So what I did, I just executed them. Third step, follow the instruction to validate your connectivity. Open the log analytic workspace to check if the logs are received or not, and if you don't see any logs there, right, common security log you don't find in the log section of your log analytic workspace, then run this command, run the following command to validate your connectivity. A very good like script in fact. So and most likely there will be a couple of error messages, I believe. So and if in case if any error message, so definitely we'll fix those errors, right? And after running this script, even in case if any error has been found there, so even like how to fix that error is also mentioned on the same page. So let me copy this. I've copied it and back to my syslog server, and I'm going to run this troubleshooting script, right? A very good script in fact, just to verify, right? If you find anything in red color, means something wrong, right? And uh, how we can fix that, even that is also mentioned there. Okay, and in the meantime, can we do verification like from syslog server, that whether not syslog, like log analytic workspace, is there any log there or not, because we don't know like is there any log or not. So but let me finish this. Please validate that you send safe messages to agent. Yes, we understand that. We can check that. All right, so a lot of messages here. I can see logging daemon configured doesn't store unnecessary. That's. But uh, getting forced to check if the security enhanced Linux is enabled, and even a suggestion install policy core utils package and run the troubleshoot script again, right? Because some of the scripts like didn't run properly. And further, like if I just let me first like show you uh, like from where we can check the log in fact, right? So open Sentinel log analytics workspace. On the left hand side, just go to logs, right? And it's taking time. Okay, close this. Welcome to log analytic workspace. Close, and then query. I want to run a query here, and like common security log. Yes, here we go. Common security log, right? Select this common security log and run. So it's running. Let's see, do we get anything? So it's running, right? Common security log. It's a Kushto query language basically. We are expecting some like logs here in case if there is any log. And here we go, right? So you can see like logs coming here in Fortigate Firewall version 7.0, right? 127. Let me do one thing. I'm back to this, and so connectivity is successful, and now I'm going to head to 12.0.128, and it's basically root server IP. So I want to telnet to 12.0.1.28 so that we can see like whether we are getting some log there or not. So port number 22, open, yes, connected. So it's a route server over the internet. You know, show route all. All right, so internet connection is successful, and via the Fortigate firewall, because this machine is behind Fortigate firewall, right? So I hope you understand like uh, route. I'm sorry, typo. Yeah. So we see here like a lot of routes, BGP routes. So basically, computer is behind a Palo Alto Fortigate firewall. So here like there is one computer for testing purpose, right? And Fortigate firewall is the gateway. So I initiated a connection, and firewall is also connected to internet. So I initiated a telnet session to a destination 12.0.1.28. So can we see that log in first like Fortigate firewall itself, forward traffic? So yes, I can see here like this one. So you can see the log here, machine IP, NATed IP, and IP destination IP, port number 23, port 22, right? So firewall, Palo Fortigate firewall has log. What about Azure Sentinel? So run this is like query again, goes to query language, but I don't want to see all the logs, right? I'm interested in, so let me put one filter here, pipe, and then I can use like where, WHE, where, right? And destination IP. So destination IP, select from the list, is equal to, and then 12.0.1.28. I'm interested in this only. Select whole commands, click run, right? So filter, wait here. So 12.0.1.28. All right, so 12.0.1.28. So common security logs where destination IP is equal to 12.0.1.28. And see, I can see here like the log, right? Fortigate firewall log. Awesome. Fortigate version, even you can see here, and a lot of information here. Traffic forward, telnet, very correct. IP, you can see here, right? And now, in case if you want to write down some analytic rule, then yes, like you can do that. And from where we do that, so let me just show you that option also. However, like my objective was to just show you how to integrate Fortigate firewall with Azure Sentinel or log analytic workspace, how to configure Syslog server, creating data connector. Okay, but in case if you want to create analytics rule, right, for like some incident, even like here like we have a lot of like automation option here also. So but separately I will talk about like automation playbook, workbook, or threat intelligence, right, taxi. So analytic, and if I create a rule, query rule from scratch, even like there are a lot of templates there, but you can create rule from scratch also. You can create a rule like uh, generate alert if any name, right? If uh, for IP, let's say I put here, you can give like just a demo, in fact sample rule I'm creating. You understand, like there are a lot of use cases uh, like along like push to query languages and all that, but I'm not going to do all that. So it's very specific, like I want to uh, find out like like some alert or incident based on the IP. Okay, so uh, generate an alert if destination address, destination IP is 12.0.1.28. You can write anything here. Topics and techniques, I don't want to mention here. Severity, let it be medium, no issue. And the rule logic, that's very important, right? Define the logic for your new analytics rule. So here, like you'll have to mention your rule, push to query language based on that. So just like for testing a lab purpose, I'm just creating the same like common and where uh, destination IP, destination, destination. Do I have destination IP option here? Yeah, destination IP and equal to 12.0.1.28. Could not parse it here. So please wait while we will evaluate your query, and even we can also verify the query result here. Will there be any output of this command or not, right? So this one. So yeah, so proper syntax. Okay, all right, and then runs every 5 minutes, looks data for one, or not, it cannot be less than that. So 5 minutes, of course. Incident settings, so I don't want to configure anything for now. Automated response, no, I'm not interested. But you understand, like in the beginning I mentioned like Azure Sentinel is SIEM plus source solution. It's not only the SIEM, in fact, right? So it's basically security orchestration, automation, and response. cloud native SIEM and source solution. So analytic rule created now. All right, so rule is created, and very soon, like we are going to see incident here, and I can see here like one incident created. So I hope you understand the whole concept, right? So let's have very quick recap what we have configured in this lab demo. So let me start all over again. So what we did, we first prepared a machine as a syslog server, and this syslog server machine can be in on-prem or cloud, anywhere, because syslog server acts as a proxy between a security device like the firewall, and for the lab demonstration I used Fortigate Firewall. So proxy between Fortigate Firewall and log analytic workspace, right? Log analytic workspace, and Sentinel runs on top of it. So with the help of data connector, logs are collected from syslog server to log analytic workspace. So Fortigate firewall is configured to forward logs to syslog server, and syslog server is configured to forward those logs to log analytic workspace. But you understand, like all logs are not relevant or important. So based on the rule logic that we create, analytic rule, in fact, rule logic using Kusto query language, like alert or incident are created here, right? And then we have a lot of like source options here, automation, and like for remediation. That's something very separate, in fact, different. So I hope you understand like how we configure on-prem FortiGate or Palo Alto or even Checkpoint or any other Cisco firewall to forward logs to log analytic workspace. So directly, no, like FortiGate firewall cannot directly forward logs to log analytic workspace. Had it been a Windows server or any other computer, so yes, no need of any syslog or proxy server. Directly, we could have installed agent software on the Windows machine itself, right? Already I have done that lab, in fact, forwarding like logs from Windows server to log analytic workspace. So that's all for this lab demonstration.